Hello guys, welcome to this first showcase video of my 3D model from my upcoming fan-made short series about Sly Cooper franchise. Today we're gonna see Sly himself from the very first test I ever did into the final version that you're seeing right now. Be prepared because it's gonna be a long travel and it's gonna be funny because the first versions were terrible. I'm sorry for the embarrassment that I may cause you, but I'm just doing this to show you the real process behind the character creation. This video is gonna be a little bit long and I'm gonna divide it for both YouTube and Patreon. For YouTube, we're gonna just analyze and see the process from screenshots and scene files, but on Patreon, we're gonna go deeper as we analyze the real process from sculpting to rendering. And so it's gonna be a more technical stuff that if you're interested and if you'd like to support my channel and my work, you can find the video on Patreon. For the rest that's gonna be on YouTube, I think that we can just start. So guys, this is just the first test I ever did on this model. Actually, I started this project on April 2024, so almost like a year ago, but then I suddenly gave up on the project for months and I took it back this February 2025. But before showing you guys the process of my modeling of Sly Cooper, I'm going to show you the references that I collected for this modeling, because if you don't know, an essential part of modeling and sculpting is finding references, and this was a game from 20 years ago, so the only references we had were like from the cutscene from the game, or you know, from the most recent game, which is like Cooper Thieves in Time, which I'm not a big fan of the art direction because I think it's just a little bit different from what we were used to, so I didn't choose Thieves in Time as references. At the beginning, actually, I was like trying to go into a little bit more realistic way. In fact, I was using the references from the movie that was cancelled, these are the only references that we had actually for years, and we were wondering how this movie was gonna turn out and why they cancelled and why we know nothing even now that I'm talking. So these were my first references that I collected. You can see that at this point the style is not even that much defined, so I didn't have a quite right direction to follow. When I started the modeling of my character, it wasn't intended for a short film or whatsoever. It was only a sculpting that I wanted to do to just expand my portfolio, nothing more than that. So with this context, I think that we can start with showing you guys the first test that I ever did on Sly. This was my very first model I ever did in this kind of a humanoid way, because I model a creature, but I never model like some humanoid kind of figures. It was challenging for me, and actually this wasn't even ZBrush because I used to work with ZBrush. At that point in life I was far from home, and so I just had this little graphic board and I had Blender. This was my very first render that I decided to make, and you may think that, wait, this is actually looking not really bad. Well, you're right, but you have to focus on the face, because the face was the cause that gave nightmares to people on Reddit and also on the Facebook group where I uploaded my updates. As you can see, this was my attempt of doing a realistic version of Sly Cooper model. Let's just say that I use XGen for the grooming. I think it was not actually that hard. What really was hard is that it was just creepy and I was blind and I didn't see what was wrong with him. The eyes are too human. The lips are so human for this kind of characters. But as I told you before, I was using the movie references, so I didn't really have a right direction to follow. Here we have another grooming update, which is even worse than the first, because the first, I mean, you could see through Gau's skin, so it was a little bit clearer, but this is like so messy, and I'm just glad I didn't go for this style. Plus, as I told you before, and as you see at the start of the video, I decided to not implement fur into my final version of the characters because it was just too heavy, and at that point I already had clear in mind that I wanted to make an animated short film. So having fur would have like slowed down so much the process, and I didn't want this to be a project that would have taken months and months of work. I mean, it's probably gonna take months of work, but I didn't want it to be that long, actually. Okay, so we have a clue moment here, because after this screenshot, I stopped the project. I gave up on the project because I was just so demotivated that I saw this and it looked like something bigger than me that I decided to give up on the project. Remember that we're currently in April 2024 and I took the project back in February 2025, so like a month ago. Just bear in mind that in 1 month I did Sly and like 8 characters all in one row, because at that point I discovered the right workflow and I just went full speed with the modeling process. So that's actually a good thing. This is the model I took from February, and as you can see, I remeshed all the different pieces that you see here, because as you'll see in the part where we'll discuss more technically about my 3D process, we sculpt by building different pieces of the body. So we have the head, 1 mesh for the neck, 2 mesh for the chest, the shoulder, arms, and so on. After you model these different pieces, you basically dyno remesh them, which means that all of these different pieces are gonna merge together and you have just one solid mesh that compose the body, which is this one. Why you do this process instead of modeling just one piece? It's simple because you can focus on different region of the body and different muscles, so you have more control over your character physique and face anatomy. So this was my first test. As you can see, I did also the entire clothing and texturing. This was a kind of paint texture only, so there was only information of base color. I didn't have any roughness, normal map, or anything like that that could add more details to my model, but only a base mesh with just some paint over, as you can see, because I wanted to give at this point a kind of comic style feel, but I think it wasn't working pretty well. But it was enough to make this render, because this was my first render I ever did of the Sly model, which I think still now is kind of good. It's good for a static render if you look closely to the face, but even to the body it just looked too simple to me. It doesn't look as interesting in 3D as it was in the 2D cutscenes. So I just did the render and that was done with me. It was at this point that I was like, wait, what if I just model the other characters as well? And after this render, so after 22nd of February, I started to model the other characters, so Neyla, Rajan, Contessa, and so on. And I never took back Sly again until the beginning of March, where I was trying again to implement fur into the model, because in my mind that was the best idea that gave more realism and fidelity to the concept, the original concept. As you may see, the result is not actually that good. If you look closely at this point, I even removed the texture of before, so we don't have any paint over texture, but we have some details going on, as you can see in the neck foulard. Sure, we have some kind of detail going on, but the face looks horrible to me, and it's so creepy to look at. This is even creepier. Here we have a version with fur and no fur. Guys, I received mixed feedbacks for this concept. Well, first of all, I was uploading on Reddit because I care so much that people who are fan of the series were like happy to see the fidelity of the characters turn into 3D art. So I really wanted people approval on this. It's meant to be for the people and for the fans, and if fans don't like this, then what I'm even doing here? When I post this on Reddit, some people loved it and some other people were scared as hell for his face and his Uncanny Valley vibes. And I guess this is the right time to just analyze this. It's really interesting how little tweaks on your model can really give you that Uncanny Valley that really turns off the model, makes the model bad. I think that again, I was just sticking with the realistic eyes and the mouth that didn't really fit this concept or characters or style. It's just a mess in terms also of texturing. If you see his face, he's got a lot of details in his face because I was trying to recreate the fur and textures. I didn't want to have like plain gray textures on his face. I wanted to have some details going on, but I think this was just too much. It was a nightmare. It was also at this point that I noticed that model and the concept was a bit simple, the clothing especially. especially, I decided to just sketch up this concept in Photoshop. So these are paintbrushes actually, and I just thought that maybe should have added some details on the upper part, because the lower part more or less was working to me, but the upper part was empty. And if you compare this to this, you can see what I mean. And yeah, so I decided to just go over the original concept of 20 years ago and just add something more to give this character a modern concept also, without changing so much the concept that become unrecognizable. The new clothing compared to the concept I did, and this will remain for the final version as well. I mean, you can see it was starting to change more or less. People at this point were pointing out that the ears were too small and that he shouldn't have had lips, or that his eyes were too small as well and too human-like. And I was like, I remember that in those days I was thinking, it looks good to me, it looks okay to me, what should I have to do? I mean, I was trying to understand what people were seeing that I wasn't seeing. And you know, this is actually a normal thing that may happen to artists, because when you work too much on your project, you tend to get used to what you see, and sometimes you need to have fresh eyes and to just detach a bit yourself from your work and watch it back later with a fresh mind, a clear mind. I was working like full day on this model. That's why I uploaded updates on Reddit and asked fans for the exact feedbacks, and that really saved my life, as you see down the line. This is a close-up of the backpack that I model for Sly, because also I was thinking, well, this guy is a thief. He has a lot of gadgets, so he has to have space for carrying them on. Now we have like the crucial point where I noticed that something was wrong with this mouth and face. As you can see here, his face shape changed. Now his face is more squared, is more defined as the original 2D concept, same as the eyes and the lips that became a little bit thinner. People used to love this concept actually, but just hate it. I mean, look at this. This was the final version. People were like, okay, this is the one. And I was thinking the same as well. I was thinking that, yeah, after the first concept that I did, this version looks so much better than before. Yeah, it was true, it was better, but there was still something going on with this face that I was totally blind about it. But the funny thing is that with this model as final, then stopped working on Sly until 2 days ago, where I changed totally my model, because from 6 March to 2nd of April, I model all the other characters. I even rigged them, so I literally just finished all the other characters, and I was just in the process of rigging it for Sly. I was encountering some issues in terms of symmetry, because as you can see, if you look closely to the front view, if you see the model is not symmetrical, which is actually a bad thing for a 3D model, because I tend to have everything mirrored, so even the rigging process and any other process of the character creation that we will see in the deeper part on Patreon, it's better to have everything symmetrical, so you just work half of clothing, half of face, half of body, and then you just mirror it. And plus, with the rigging, when you have to place bones, you just don't have to get crazy and place them one by one, because the model is asymmetrical. But you just do it half model and then you mirror it. I was doing that one by one like crazy, and that was what made me think, well, I have to redo the model again. And that was courageous, because imagine that you as an artist, you finish a model, you're proud also that you're almost finishing all the other characters so you can step into the next stage. Then you decide to redo the characters all over. This is something that it takes courage to do, because some artists are like so fixated to their work that they don't even see flaws that people point out. I think that artists should be like detached from their art. Don't treat their art like their children. It's just art. At this point, I just redid all the model, not scared of redoing the rigging and the other stuff. And then we are going to a less creepier version, I promise, and which is this one. And guys, if you see this new version, you realize how bad it was. The older version, it was embarrassing that I didn't know that this was going on and not this one, because I think that the new version looks a lot more the original concept that I chose for this character. The more you see the new version, and the more you understand that how creepy and weird it was, the older version. But believe me, guys, that I was totally blind about it. Really arrived at that point that you don't see any flaws to your model anymore. Plus, people were telling me that this version was okay, they find it okay. But you know, I never trust fully people, and that's you're an artist should always consider, because that's something that I also tell in my music profile, because I also make music, and I tell to people, well, just don't stick with one idea, have always another propose. This way you just can compare the two versions and see if your original idea was better than the newest version or the opposite. And that's what I did actually. I did it well. I just modeled it all over and see if my original idea was better or if this was better. And man, this saved my whole project, considering this is the protagonist of the story. I was about to make another mistake. Believe me, guys, that if you're not a fan of the series, but the series was so scammed over the years about concepts and about our direction going the wrong direction, detaching so much from the original concept that we grew up with. So I didn't want to give people and fans another bad concept, and this actually saved my life, and I'm so happy about all the people that kept pointing out flaws even when I was modeling other characters. You should listen more not to your voice and not to what you say, to your heart, but you should always provide another propose to yourself, just to detach yourself from your heart and see things objectively. Anyway, this was the new version. If you see now, I restored the symmetry, as you see, so now the model is perfectly symmetrical. I'm gonna explain you in the deeper part of this video how I actually restored the characters without having to remodel all of this. What I did was actually take this model, this creepy model, fix his face, remesh it, and redo the UVs and the textures. Basically, that's it. So another thing that people don't do to improve their art is that they think that improvements may take even more time than creating a model from zero. But in reality, if you just stick with it and you know the steps that you need to take to just do these fixes, this is an invite to people to just do the fixes for the sake of your project. I mean, it's your project, so you should be the first that cares so much about the concept and everything else. So why not spending more time on it? But anyway, this becomes the final version, because you know it was great, but there was still something off with his mouth. To me, this is perfect. I'm really proud of this one, and I really hope that I'm not blind as before, but I think that it really is more similar to the concept and it's not that bad as before. And this is the first version. I just put it here to just show you how impactful this is. Like the first version and the last version, like two completely different things. As I said before, this was my first time modeling a character, and by the time that I finished tweaks and the modification on Sly, I already modeled 8 characters in 1 month. So during this process, I mastered the modeling process in Blender. But this is also an invitation for you guys to not stick with the first version you do of your model ever, especially if it's the first time you're doing it. Anyway, guys, this is the ending of the first part where I show you the process of creating my 3D Sly model. If you want to continue the analysis and go much deeper in really see the steps in the program, real process of my 3D workflow that you can learn from, you can check everything on Patreon and on other sites down below. I want to thank you for your extreme support that you're giving into the Facebook group and in the Red page. I want to tell you that if you like to subscribe to this channel, you'll help me a lot. You can even join if you ever like to support the series, my channel and my work. I am forever grateful for that, because this is a fan-made project. We are starting and we are going with zero budget. I recruited a team of voice actors. They are all incredible. If you really want to support the series, please subscribe to their channel as well. You find every link down below, and if you like to just dive more into the 3D stuff and support me even more, you can just join my Patreon. So guys, thank you for watching. I hope you are not bored, and I hope that this was interesting. It was fun actually to just go through all this process creation, and it just makes me realize that yeah, I did they did good to change the model all over. Let me know what you guys think down below, and see you in the next video.